In my 6 years of playing it, Millennium Dawn has taken a lot out of me. I remember when I first played it back in 2019, it was just a typical total conversion mod, with its only really unique features being an economy system and more complex laws for you to pick and choose from. But overall, it was still a fairly simple mod to get into. At least that was until the enshittification began. In my opinion, the first cracks in the mod started to show when Spain got a focus tree. Before the Spain update, focus trees were simple. If we use the French focus tree as an example, we can see that it features straightforward political, foreign policy, economic, and military trees that, as expected of a major power, are decently big. And then here we have the Spanish focus tree. Software bloat is a process in which successive versions of a computer program become perceptibly slower than the last while only making vague user-perceptible changes. Usually, one of the main drivers behind software bloat is feature creep, which is defined as the excessive ongoing expansion of new features to a product, usually going beyond the basic function of the product. More often than not, feature creep and software bloat go hand in hand, as constant additions to a software tend to overcomplicate and bloat it, making it unnecessarily resource intensive on the computer and overtly complicated and unappealing for the consumer. To say Millennium Dawn suffers from both these problems would be quite the understatement, and the perfect example of both these issues in the mod is Italy. If you choose to play as Italy in Millennium Dawn, then you will have to deal with a mafia system, a reform expectancy system, and with more than half your focus tree being locked behind your ruling party and your ruling coalition's popularity. Now at first, that doesn't seem too difficult, until you realize that seemingly everything in Italy is left up to random chance on top of the game itself trying to fuck you over. To demonstrate this, let's say you want to do something as simple as getting rid of your country's inefficient judicial system. To get rid of this debuff, you need to do 3 focuses, all of which require your ruling coalition to have more than 50% government popularity. This means that to actually be able to do these focuses as fast as possible, you need to not change your taxation, not change your laws, and hope that no random events force a party in your coalition to lose popularity. All this to finish 3 28-day focuses. And this is actually one of the easier focus branches to complete. Some focuses as Italy require you to have or not have certain parties in your coalition. Others require you to meet vague prerequisites like not having any statist parties in your coalition, which is something you can only check by mousing over the Sick Man of Europe focus, and easily a quarter of your focus tree is taken up by arbitrary 0-day focuses that do absolutely nothing and that don't automatically bypass. And right now, we're just talking about the focus tree. We haven't even gone into the mafia and how fighting and getting rid of them is largely up to random chance, or into how the only viable way to get the only real political paths, those being the Roman right-wing paths, is to start a civil war that you all but have to cheese to win before the AI sends volunteers to the democratic side. Playing Italy in Millennium Dawn is all but impossible thanks to all the RNG and bullshit it requires, and while Italy is by far the worst offender when it comes to bloat, it ain't the only example. This is the German focus tree. It is large, it is hard to navigate, and as you could have probably guessed, all the fun paths are locked behind a civil war that you have to trigger by making your favorite extremist RNG good through the Bundesamt screen, which is something only Germany gets. And if you need a third example of bloat in Millennium Dawn, look no further than Czechia, which again has a large and hard to navigate focus tree, and 2 exclusive mechanics that are added in for seemingly no reason. If it isn't obvious, most of this bloat is added to Millennium Dawn to make it seem like the mod has more content than it actually does. Why else do you think the Millennium Dawn team would waste their time and effort adding focus trees for Fiji, the Comoros, and Botswana when major powers like the UK have had the same focus tree since the mod was released? And so far, we've only looked at the mod's content. If we shift over to talking about Millennium Dawn's playability, we'll quickly find that in its current state, the only truly playable country in the mod is Russia. This is because, at some point, some genius in the Millennium Dawn team decided that your population and your industry should have a daily fuel consumption requirement to justify this mod having power plants and an energy system. Unsurprisingly, this change made it so that countries with big industries that don't produce a significant amount of oil, like Germany and Japan, have to trade away more than half their civilian factories for oil so they can afford to have an industry. I don't think you need to be a genius to see that this system is awful and makes it so you can only really play oil-rich nations that don't have to give away their industries like Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. I, like many people, strongly believe that the main reason behind Millennium Dawn's excessive bloat is the fact that its developers want to turn a World War II sandbox game into a realistic simulation of modern geopolitics. And unfortunately for them, they'll never be able to do that. BlackBerry was once the biggest cell phone company in the world. Thanks to its innovative keyboard and trackpad design and their revolutionary usage of data to send text messages, they were able to completely dominate the global cell phone market in the early 2000s. But after Apple unveiled and released the iPhone, BlackBerry would begin to decline. It turned out that while consumers liked BlackBerry's iconic keyboard and trackpad, they vastly preferred the iPhone's touchscreen and the larger display it brought with it. So, to try to catch up to the iPhone, BlackBerry released the Storm, their first ever touchscreen device. And to say the Storm was a catastrophic failure would be the understatement of the century. A bloated and unstable operating system, sluggish performance, and faulty touchscreens all led to the Storm being arguably the worst cell phone ever made, resulting in a million sold phones being returned and the death of BlackBerry as a cell phone company by 2016. Millennium Dawn is like the BlackBerry of Hoi4 mods. While at first the mod was a fun modern-day sandbox, today Millennium Dawn stands as a bloated, slow, and unstable mess, all because its developers have chosen to forgo fun and game stability, all in the name of realism. While I'd love to say Millennium Dawn is a mod that can be salvaged, the unfortunate reality is that its developers will most likely keep adding worthless mechanics into the mod, they'll keep giving nations unnecessarily large focus trees, and they'll keep overhauling tech and combat, all in the name of realism. And at the end of the day, they'll be able to say that Millennium Dawn is in fact the most realistic modern day mod ever made. But at the same time, it'll also be the slowest, least playable, most unstable mod to have ever graced Hoi4's workshop.